for a time that we can set aside to focus on studying scriptures that you've given to us. Help us to honor these beautiful words that have been handed down from generation to generation, guarded and carefully kept for us. Lord, help us to understand them and to let them fill up our lives so that we can look more and more like your Son every day. Lord, we want to pray for many people this morning. We want to pray for Jan's dad as he goes into triple bypass surgery next week. We just pray this week, rather. Just pray that you, the doctors, and protect Roger and just keep him healthy and have him have quick recovery. Pray for Jan's cousin Leo as well as he's has this cancer. Just pray for healing and for comfort for him and his family. We pray for Mr. Ingram's brother-in-law Tom. Just pray that he would also make a quick recovery, that you would heal his body from all the trauma that he's just been through. But we also pray for Jan's childhood friend Roland and the passing of his sister. Just pray that he can be a comfort to him and continue to encourage him through this loss. We pray for Rena's aunt as she is going to see an oncologist. Just prayers for good news and for healing for her. Just pray that she find the treatment and that she make a full recovery. Lord, we pray for Andrew and our new friend. We pray for his brother and just this difficult situation, this divorce that he's just went through. Pray that Andrew can be an encouragement to him and that we can support him in doing so. We pray for Travis's cousin Danny and all of the people that are involved in this war, this newest war. Just pray for all these conflicts to quickly come to an end and to protect people that are in harm's way. Just pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
All right. So, has most everybody gotten the app kind of figured out by now? Not even close. Not even close. Okay, we'll do a quick review. Oh, sorry, it was turned off. Okay. We'll do a quick review of the video, and please get with me in between class and worship if you need help with the app, and I'll try and get it set up on your phone. There are a couple extra buttons that you gotta find to get to the video, but I think it'll be worth your time. And so this class is called With, and it is by this guy named Scott Tutani. He is basically walking through different ways that most people approach God. And so the first way that we went through last week was life under God. So God is an exacting master, and you need to obey him in the right ways, and once you do that, then you'll get his blessings, kind of earning these blessings. And then the second wrong way of approaching him that we're going to be talking about this week is life over God. And I thought he did a good job kind of showing how our modern culture really falls into this trap quite a bit. And so both on the scientific side, so people who want to master the environment around them using science, it's a very powerful tool. It kind of makes you believe that you're in charge, that you don't need anything, and that you're kind of the master of your own destiny. And then he also talked about how, even on the religious side, that often we, if your relationship with God, if you could take God out of the equation, and you are basically getting everything that you need without God, then you're living a life over God. That you've kind of put him into a little box, and you're operating the levers of your life and trying to get the things that you need. Then you're living with this posture of life over God. He said that this basically comes from this need for control. We want control in our lives, and it feels anxious. You feel anxious. You feel depressed when you don't have control. When you feel worried or scared or whatever it might be. And so that need for control kind of explains why we use the Bible as like a rule book to follow. He said the basic instructions before leaving Earth, or like a manual for good living. Have you ever fallen into that pattern? And what's the appeal to approaching the Bible that way?
So I think this class, the preamble for this class is that as a Christian, and this person's speaking to other Christians, as a Christian, have you ever felt like you were missing out on blessings, some of the blessings? What was the problem that you weren't enjoying all of the blessings? That's kind of the introduction, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he was kind of talking about that.
And then the approach is part of the problem with not feeling like you're really connected to God is that you have the wrong view of your relationship under God or with God or
Yeah.
in God.
So he talks about these postures.
And so 40 years ago, if you taught this class, you would teach it from J.B. Phillips' book,
Okay.
Your God is Too Small.
Okay.
And I think that was much the same thing. And I don't know, have you read J.B. Phillips' book?
I have not read
God
that.
is Too Small. Of course, it goes through the ideas of, he's a great big jolly man sitting on a cloud in heaven, and then others, all the variations in the relationship. And J.B. Phillips talks about how to really experience the full blessings of God.
Okay.
But that's 40 years ago. How old are you?
Almost 40.
Your birthday's coming up.
At least he gets there before me. So. Under the bus. All right.
I understand the characterization of the New Testament as a new rule book, but where the mistake has been is regarding it as a system of rules in order to get right with God, or in order to gain these blessings, like you've been saying. When you look at it as a rule book that lets me know how I should live since I've been saved, that puts a whole new light on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a law of Christ, but it's not in order to be saved. It's a law of how do we live since we have been saved.
Yeah, and if you look at the old covenants the same way, this isn't the rule book that you have to follow to be saved. God saves them out of Egypt. He rescues them. He saves them. And then he gives them, okay, now that I've saved you, now that I've rescued you, here's how I want my kingdom to be run. So in the same way, we are saved first, and then we are brought into this kingdom. Now how should I live? Well, we have all this wisdom in the Old Covenant and in the New Covenant to help you understand how you have to live in God's kingdom. I think when I thought about this question, I remember when I was younger, and this is probably due to my own misunderstanding, not poor teaching, but I had a really good, I had a way better photographic memory than I do now. But it was like I could remember the issue that was brought up. So maybe it was instrumental music in church, and then I could remember the proof text that was associated with that, and then I could remember how to correctly think about that. And I just kind of thought that if I knew all of the things I'm supposed to believe, and I had the right ideas about them all, then I'd be right with God. That having these ideas lined up in the right way would give me this control over my own life and control over my own destiny or something. I don't know. I wasn't really sure exactly what the point was, but it felt very important to me to have the right thoughts and the right ideas. And not to say that it's not good to have the right thoughts and ideas, but I think I went about it in this way, in that I thought that the Bible was meant for us to kind of dissect into the right theology, and then you're supposed to hold the exact right theology, and that was the purpose of it. But now I feel like my relationship with the Bible has changed dramatically, in that this is this never-ending well of life that comes into me and fills me up, and so it's it's just a very different posture towards the Bible, and I think towards God, hopefully, as well. Let's read Matthew chapter 7. This guy brought this up in his video. Matthew 7, can somebody read 21 to 23 for me?
Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, evildoers.
So what is the key to entering this door, to getting let in?
Knowing God.
Yeah, it's knowing him, being known by him, and knowing him, right? It's having this relationship, and so that's kind of what this whole study is about. That's what this idea of with is to be in relationship with God. And so, why does Jesus pick these three things? Prophesying in your name, casting out demons, performing miracles.
Things are all physical things to do in front of others to potentially, that's what God's name is source for, ask the apostles for this blessing so that you can then be great like them,
Mhm.
things. So it's not, none of these necessarily have your personal relationship with God through Jesus or anything like that. It's more showing off to others that you have the power, that you have the ability to do these things.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't noticed that. They're all kind of public things. I suppose you could do a miracle in private, so like you'd have at least one witness. Secret miracles. What else? If somebody did a miracle in front of you, what would you think about that?
It's the man or the woman that gets up every morning and puts a name tag that says prophet of God, miracle worker, defeater of the enemy. I'm wearing a name tag. I'm so proud of myself. And Jesus says, take the name tag off and go take care of the widow and the homeless. That's my will. Not that you march out. I did it in your name, though.
No.
Not if you walked past the homeless. Not if you walked past those people that were without a home or without a nation, for that matter.
Yeah, it's interesting that we don't have any of these other things which are mentioned elsewhere in the Sermon on the Mount of how you're to care for your brothers and sisters. I think one of the things that strikes me is that these are all incredibly impressive. Like if I was to see anybody do one of these things, and it seemed like it was legitimate, like I would be like, oh wow, this person is full of power and must be, if anybody's in, they must be in, right? That's the immediate thought that comes to my mind. Like, person does a miracle, person has some sort of prophecy, or what was the other one? Sorry. Casting out demons. Yep, demon comes out. It's like, all right. That is, you're doing great. Yeah. But Jesus says, nope. Like, there are going to be a bunch of people who do these kinds of things. I think that's why you get a list of 3. It's like this kind of stuff. Who, at the end of the day, they're going to be told, no, no. And so I think what it does for me is, I think it gives me humility, and I think it ought to help us understand that, like, it's not necessarily the fruit of your labor. It's not seeing the result of this miraculous thing that is what God cares about, or the measure of somebody's faithfulness. And he's not explicit about it, but I think it is that I didn't know you. You didn't know me. We were not in relationship. That's the problem. In the video, he also talked about this story about Moses. So we're going to turn over to Numbers chapter 20. Anybody feel confident enough to give us a synopsis of the Israelites in the desert, why they're in the desert at this point, and where they've been in the past couple of years?
Well, they said, what's that? It starts with an M, where the water wasn't good enough.
Meribah.
Yes. And God told them, go over there and say to the rock, give me water.
Okay,
Moses went over there.
so that's
2 different things, right?
So that's our story today. What happened? How did the Israelites get here? Is my question.
Grumbling.
What's that?
Grumbling.
So they're grumbling. Why are they grumbling?
Lack of faith and trust in God to lead them out there.
Okay. Why do they think they're grumbling? They're thirsty, right? They're thirsty. They're hungry. They're in the desert, and why are they in the desert? They're going to the Promised Land. They're supposed to be going to the Promised Land. They get right up to the border of the Promised Land, and they chicken out. They decide that the giants, they're too big, and we're just going to get killed. And so God says, okay, back to the desert. And so they end up back in the desert. And so this story, this is right after they get rescued out of Egypt in Exodus, and then they get brought to Mount Sinai, and they get formed into a covenant people. And then before they go to Mount Sinai, though, they have grumbling. They do some grumbling because they don't have water and they don't have food, and they're out in the desert and it's hot, and they want to go back to Egypt. And so here on the other side of the covenant, now that they're covenant people, the same things happen again. They're hungry and they're thirsty and they want to go back to Egypt. And this time, though, there's consequences for everybody. So let's read 1 to 13 here. Then the sons of Israel, the whole congregation, came to the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed at Kadesh. Now Miriam died there and was buried there, and there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves against Moses and Aaron. The people thus contended with Moses and spoke, saying, if only we had perished when our brothers perished before the Lord. Why then have you brought the Lord's assembly into this wilderness for us and our beasts to die here? Why have you made us come up from Egypt to bring us into this wretched place? It is not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, nor is there water to drink. Then Moses and Aaron came in from the presence of the assembly to the doorway of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the rod, you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation, and speak to the rock before their eyes, that it may yield its water. You shall thus bring forth waters for them out of the rock, and let the congregation and their beasts drink. So Moses took the rod from before the Lord, just as he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock, and he said to them, now listen, you rebels, shall we bring forth water for you out of this rock? Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod, and water came forth abundantly. The congregation and the Lord and the beasts, and the congregation and their beasts drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you have not believed me to treat me as holy in the sight of the sons of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. Those were the waters of Meribah, because the sons of Israel contended with the Lord. He proved himself holy among them. And so after refusing to enter the promised land for fear of the people there, the nation of Israel wandered in the wilderness, and they are down in this area. And they approach their leaders for a solution. And so Moses and Aaron pray, right? So far, it's good, right? This is the good, maybe more trust, but we have a problem in hot water. Go to the leaders go to the Lord to pray. So far, so good. What's your first instinctive action when presented with a problem to solve? Start thinking about the problem.
What was it?
I said break it down.
My thought was nothing, like just put your shoulder into it, keep it open, and figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not that too.
Think about it, and be about it. Okay? Anybody have any other first instincts?
I have a cousin that when he wanted to assemble a plastic model, the first thing he did, inexplicably, was throw away the instructions. And always ended up with some extra parts. He didn't know where to go. But that's my first instinct, is follow the instructions.
Okay. So what would that look like on a given day?
I guess the Moses striking the rock is proof that he ignored the instructions.
Sure. Yeah, and I think the way that I understand the Bible is that it's meant to be this kind of meditation literature that you're supposed to return to time and time again. And once you are old and you've just meditated on it your whole life, then it kind of fills your life up with all these different structures. And so like when you encounter this new thing in the world, it's like, oh, well, that kind of looks like this, and it kind of has this sense to it, and widows are involved here, and this is how justice and mercy and all righteousness are all interacting in these new ways. And so I now have this whole toolkit of ways that I should be in the world and help others be that way too. And so yeah, I think when I think of the instructions, that's kind of how I see that idea, is that we're meant to take these stories and ideas and bring them into the world, into people and situations that we encounter.
Well, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And these people had learned to fear Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
They hadn't learned to fear the Lord or even reverence the Lord. And so one of the reasons why they had to come out was they had to leave the attractive comfort of life as a slave. And as bad as it got, they still had plenty of onions and garlic, And that's the first thing that they have to remember, is that God is their source of everything. And these things need to be tucked away as lessons.
Yeah.
And their grumbling was in their DNA, and they needed to be broken down. And an entire generation of people would never yield to being broken down. And so if you ever engineered it into their DNA, it had to be the next generation. And it's a new nation. These people need to realize they're a new nation. They have a new God. It's not God Ra or Pharaoh, but it's Jehovah God.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that they hadn't, they did not have an established habit of turning first to God.
Yeah.
You want to play a little game in your mind. Think about these people and their lack of water, and if they would have just sat down
these people are, they're wandering in the wilderness, waiting to die, basically. This generation is waiting to die. The children can go into the promised land. The amount of hardship it takes me to throw my hands up in the air and get upset with God is it's a far lower bar than I see the Israelites going through. And so, yeah, I think we can empathize with them and also learn from them. Hopefully, we don't have to go through the same trials that they do. Sky brought up this point that the Lord's solution involved Moses and Aaron's staff, the same way that they used the Nile waters to turn into blood, to bring locusts on the land, to part the Red Sea, and it had also been used once before to bring water from the rock. Why do you have to be careful when you feel like you've got it, like you've figured it all out?
Isn't there that verse that says, man plans, God laughs?
I'm not sure if that's in the Bible, but it's definitely a truism. And so we have this idea that when we start making plans, when we start thinking we have it figured out, that's when we have to be careful. I think one of these, or at least one of the lessons we can draw from Moses' actions here. Any other thoughts on that?
He struck the rock under command a previous time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last time he was told to strike the rock.
This time he's told to speak to the rock. And he, for various reasons, has pin-up feelings against the Israelites that are not following and not trusting. And he thinks a show of a display here will make the case better that they're in disobedience. But ironically, he's the one that's disobeying.
Sure. I think the most interesting thing about this story is that it works. Right? Struck it last time, water came out. Strike it again. Strike it one more time. Just for good measure. And it works. Right? They get water. Problem solved.
I was hear his verse, I'm always curious, was there a pause between the first and second strike? If he hit it, he it didn't work this time.
Mm.
Hit it again, and I was like, okay, I'll let it go. But you didn't listen.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. I've never thought of that either. Yeah. And so Sky's whole point is that this posture toward God, life over God, that you can do things, you can go through actions that seem on the surface to get results, right? My church is growing, or my ministry is successful, and the numbers are up. But it's like I've neglected God's commands and how they actually function in my life, and I'm not attending to what He wants, which is this relationship. And so if we're failing in those areas, then at the end of the day, it's all for naught, right? It's building up these treasures on earth, and they're soon to be gone. What's the alternative?
Well, for us, we've enjoyed this salvation by grace. We've been saved. We've been adopted as children. That should cause us to, out of love for the Lord, to take His word seriously, to go back to the word daily. As opposed to those that have a cheap grace that say, well, I've been saved. I don't need the Bible. I don't need the apostles' instructions for my life. I got this. I'm saved. Salvation that's truly felt and experienced should cause us to take Scripture seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what would that look like seems kind of counterintuitive, but it's like building that relationship up ahead of time is again, I'm going to keep beating this drum because I just feel like this is what God is continuing to try to show to me in my life, is that prayer, these habits that we're building, that is the treasure that you're storing in heaven. It's that relationship with God, but it's also that resiliency in your life. It's this richness that you can share with other people. Like, that is the treasure that's getting built up. And so if you're praying, because you're in a bind, that's not bad, right? That's what Moses and Aaron do. But if the people had that relationship beforehand, if they were all more attentive to the situation they were in, then they wouldn't have ended up in the situation, right? It's almost this like, it's kind of like a paradox, but to get to that point it's like you have to realize, I've made a bunch of mistakes ahead of time, and I need to not just cry out for God, but also kind of reset some of these habits. Any other thoughts on that idea?
Interesting that God told him to take the staff. That's the first thing he told him to do. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, why would God do that?
If you wanted to get rid of the temptation, you'd be like, no, use the staff in your tent and go and speak to the God. He said, take your staff.
It's kind of the same question of, why is there a snake in the garden? And why are all these problems in my life? I think he tells him to take the staff because you're always going to have the staff. You're always going to, there's always the opportunity to do this incorrectly. And would it be easier if you didn't have that? Maybe, but it's like, that's also just not how, I just don't think that's how reality is. It's like you have these problems, and you can be praying, you can be having charity and prayer and fasting. Like, you can have these habits in your life and be ready for it. Or when it happens, there's the rock, here's the staff. I think I know what to do because I've done this before, but I wasn't paying attention. I'm not doing the thing I'm supposed to be doing, and so it's there. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's kind of how I think about those kinds of questions. It kind of has to be this way. All right, so to wrap up today, here's a quote from him. He says, "Simply because something works, even if it's biblical and true, doesn't mean that we are being faithful to God. God allowed Moses' disobedience to bring water to the Israelites, but he pronounced judgment on him. Moses would not enter the promised land. Sometimes it may be hard to discern whether we are acting on our own or trusting God. What can you do to keep the God of the Bible more central in your life? And what could it look like to avoid doing life without him this week?" What could you do to keep the God of the Bible more central in your life? And what could it look like to avoid doing life without him this week?
So much of his purposes are laid out as far as I can read expectations, I can read instructions, I can read what God expects of me. And so I think it's important to read those and then not be like, okay, here's what he meant. Here's what I think he's trying to say here. It doesn't actually
so what does that look like this week to put that into action?
I think kind of like you were saying, like that preparedness, like we've been talking about at least Bible class, like let's pray for boldness, but if you're gonna pray for boldness, be ready for something bold to happen, you know, and be ready to answer that call when it comes up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like this, if we're praying, then we ought to try to bring that into the rest of our life, right? When we have the problem, don't just start rolling the sleeves up to get after it. It's like I pause and I pray and I think about how this, this rich thing that I've been trying to build up in my life can be brought into this part of my life. So we're not dissecting it all. Any other thoughts?
Can I read 2 verses from Romans 8?
Please.
What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who is against us? He who did not spare his own son, but delivered him over for us all, how will he not also with him freely give us all things? That should be kind of the basis for all we do. It's, he loved us, he gave his son for us. How will he not give us everything I need? He's the source of everything, so I need to live accordingly.
Yeah, and so this week it might be that you have some opportunity to trust God and to wait upon Him, and you do, and you feel like you're let down. A good reminder is that you might be just in the wrong time frame, right? This might be a 10-year kind of prayer answer, not a 3-day turnaround.
Well, Moses' career path was deeply altered. I mean, he was 40 years into his life, and he thought he'd absolutely arrived at the pinnacle of world power. And then the one impulse of his heart was to lift another man's burden. And in seeing one of his Hebrew countrymen being harmed, he lifted a burden and he killed a man. And that's 180 degrees counter to his career path, and it set him on a 40-year pilgrimage. So Jesus just said, lift a burden. We see a burden, lift a burden. And I think we need to consider all of the things that we talked about today, but we need to ask the question, are we walking past people with burdens every day? What are we doing about it?
Good word. All right, let's say a quick prayer. We'll be reading watching the Life from God video this next week. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Help us to just take these moments throughout our week, this week, and to build up our relationship with you through your Son, Jesus. Help us to conform our lives to look more like His, to seek relationship with the people around us so that they can give us a good reflection of how we actually look, and we can see the outcomes of our actions. But help us to ask for forgiveness when we fail, and help us to seek reconciliation when we're wrong or when we feel hurt. Give us the courage to do those things and to pursue your way as we await for the return of your Son. It's in His name we pray this.